morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on another session of the WeConnect Academy. This time, we're very honored to have Denise Evans presenting technology trends to watch in 2018. Denise Evans is the Vice President, Global Women B2B Marketing for the IBM Corporation. That means that she puts a lot of effort to ensure that women-owned, led, and influenced businesses globally understand how to leverage technology to accelerate the growth and success of their businesses. Denise has also served in numerous leadership and executive positions in IBM for many years, including directors of global e-business, global customer loyalty, and global e-relationship marketing. She currently serves on the board of directors of the Women Presidents Organization, Enterprising Women Magazine, the Galt Foundation, the Global Summit of Women, National Alliance for Mental Illness, Maryland, the SOLVE Solve Group, and is an expert community member of Catalyst. She has been featured as an awardee in Working Mother, Women's Enterprise, Uptown Professional, and Savoy magazines. She received the Women of Impact Leadership Award for Impact Leadership 21 at the United Nations and the World of Difference Award from the International Alliance of Women. As a global citizen, she has traveled across 6 continents and is a mentor to many in marketing and sales, and a lifetime member of the Girl Scouts USA. Denise earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics and Economics from Brown University and an MBA from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. In today's webinar, we will learn about how the next wave of disruptive innovation will be led by the established enterprises leveraging their proprietary customer data and decades of a specific industry expertise. Over the next 5 to 10 years, 4 important technologies will enable this disruptive innovation across businesses of all types: cloud, data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive computing, and blockchain. I'll let Denise introduce herself, but I would like to remind all the attendees that you're muted, and if you would like to make any questions, please write them down in the chat or Q&A boxes, and I'll read them out loud at the end of the webinar. This is a one-chance opportunity to learn as much as possible, so we encourage you to do as many questions as possible. Thank you, Denise, for being here with us today.
And thank you for the invitation, Andrea. This is the most fun part of my job and in my career, quite honestly. I'm honored to be on with so many successful businesswomen from around the world. I greatly admire you, and my hope is that I can help you be even more successful in your businesses by understanding these very important, very strategic, and quite honestly, very exciting technologies to leverage the success of your business. Just a little bit about me that wasn't in the bio is that I am a longtime geek. I love this stuff. I started with IBM many, many years ago, and upon entering IBM, they taught me how to program computers using assembly language and punch cards, much like you saw in the Hidden Figures movie. I'm also a science fiction fan, and I never would have thought that we'd be in an era in my lifetime where there's artificial intelligence, machine learning, and some of the other technologies that we're talking about. So I want to say overall that right now, your business strategy used to drive what types of technologies you leverage. In this era, the technologies are so far ahead of what we can imagine that the challenge to all of you is to understand just enough about these technologies as the CEOs of your company so that you can adopt your business strategies to leverage what's ahead and what's exciting. And I'm happy to answer your questions at the end. It's a little difficult talking one way, but I hope to be as explicit as understandable as I can. So I'm going to talk about these technologies, but I'm going to skip the first 2 because I assume everybody knows about cloud and everybody knows about data, big data, and analytics. I did add the Internet of Things, and I'll also talk about artificial intelligence and blockchain. Now, for some reason, okay, there we go. So a little bit about IBM. If you don't know IBM, we're a global technology and innovation company headquartered in Armonk, New York. We are the largest technology employer in the world. We employ 366,000 IBMers serving clients in 170 countries. Last year, we generated just under $8 billion of revenue in 2017, I meant. And most importantly, we invested $6 billion in research and development and just completed our 26th year of patent leadership of companies around the world. And so where we live is at the intersection of technology, but most importantly, how it helps businesses. We are a B2B only company. So I want to start out by talking about artificial intelligence. You noticed in the title that I had artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive, etc. Think of artificial intelligence as the broad scopes of, let's say, birds, but there are many breeds of birds. And so there are many different ways, not as many as there are breeds of birds, but there are various ways to infuse artificial intelligence. There are different branches of it. What we use at IBM is called cognitive computing or machine learning. It's distinguished from artificial intelligence purely because artificial intelligence in its purest form, which you've mostly seen in the science fiction movies, is emulating the intelligence of a human being. We're all born with a certain level of intelligence. However, machine learning or cognitive computing is all about the way we learn. Watson is a machine that learns the way we learn, regardless of the level of intelligence you have. And if you think about the way we learn, it's we observe, we interpret, we evaluate, and we decide what something is or is not through our senses, through our sight, and any other manners, through reading, sense, sight, etc. So in general, cognitive computing systems extend the capabilities of us as humans by augmenting our decision-making capacity, not replacing it, and helping us make sense of the growing amount of data germane to a situation. So this is all about data, the proliferation of data, the Internet of Things, devices that have digital chips in them around the world. Think about this, 102 million wearables were shipped in 2016, estimated to go up to 237 million by 2021. 100,000 new cancer articles are published every year. Do you think your doctor is up to date on everything that there is out there? 80 million MRIs are taken every year, and up to 3 billion in 1980. And there are 2.2 trillion locations generating hyperlocal weather forecasts across the globe every 15 minutes. IBM has acquired the weather company, and so we have now infused weather company APIs in our Watson offerings. There are 2.5 million emails a second, and 10,000, this is scary, cybersecurity, 10,000 new software vulnerabilities were recorded in 2016. There's 600 million forms of malware, with close to 400,000 variations introduced every single day trying to hack our systems. And of course, 500 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. So what cognitive computing, AI, machine learning is about is augmenting our human capacity to make decisions. If you look at the bottom line on this chart, the purple line, our capacity and ability to adapt and learn would be represented by that line because we only have 24 hours in a day, we sleep 8 hours, we have to eat and do other things. And so we're limited by our capacity to absorb and retain information. However, computers work 24/7. They don't take vacations, they don't eat, they don't really require anything, and they're super fast. So whereas we can only digest so much, computers can digest everything that's out there to help us harness whatever information and insights we can get from the proliferation of data that I mentioned on the previous page. So I'm going to talk about IBM Watson a little bit, how it works. This is our cognitive computing offering. Again, you can harness the power of augmented intelligence. What's the difference between data, big data, data analytics, and cognitive computing or AI? The difference is at the top of this page. It's the difference between structured and unstructured data. Structured data is the kind of data that's digitized and that you find in databases in computers where programs can be written to extract information. That's big data analytics. However, artificial intelligence or cognitive machine learning also incorporates unstructured data. Unstructured data is data that does not reside in a database. It's movies, it's videos, it's text, it's handwritten notes, it's things you can see. So it's all the senses that you take in information over can be included. So that's the big jump between big data and then cognitive computing. And then what it does is it ingests and transforms all the information that's out there, both unstructured and structured, to provide insights to human beings. The way it works is through hypothesis testing, and it will come up with 3, 4, 5 recommendations that a human being can then use to determine what's the best course of action. So, how does Watson get in all of this unstructured data as well? Watson can see through visual recognition, it can hear, it can speak, it feels true, it has empathy. In fact, Watson has put out the first movie trailer done totally through Watson artificial intelligence, because Watson could watch the movie, understand the emotions, the feelings, and everything else that are in the movie, and digest that and come out with a 30-second movie trailer, which is what directors do, except when directors do it, it takes months, and Watson did it in a couple of minutes. It can also translate, and it discovers. It's very good at research. It's going out and taking in all the unstructured and structured data, news feeds, to help researchers and others discover insights. I'm going to skip that. So, how are small businesses leveraging AI? Small business, as in less than 1,000 employees, is what's generally talked about. This is a good point to say that artificial intelligence is in its beginnings now. If it's like the human being, it's a toddler. It's not an infant anymore, a toddler. So that it's mostly large organizations with huge problems and huge returns, putting in the money and resources to leverage it. However, small businesses now are leveraging AI. They're leveraging it through intelligent CRM systems, through intelligent customer service solutions. I think most of you have probably gone to a online for service and talked to a chat bot, which is not a real human being. It's an artificial intelligence application that allows you to have an avatar on screen and you think you're talking to a human being, but you're not. AI for marketing, for competitive intelligence, and there are some AI-ready solutions. If you Google that, you'll find some AI-ready solutions that small businesses can leverage. So with Watson, you can do these 6 different things, and I'm not going to read them because I'm going to give you examples of each one. The first one I want to talk about is accelerating research and discovery. The neat thing about Watson and the cognitive computing is that machines don't have bias, other than whatever biases you might put into it, which is another topic altogether. But machines don't have bias. They have all the time in the world. They're not limited by the 24-hour clock to digest information, and they're fast. It can do it really fast in a matter of minutes, digesting the information. So if you think about research and discovery, whereas we as human beings normally, we have to pick a starting point. We have to say that, I should probably go over here and look at this information and then funnel down, versus looking at the totality of information, because I don't have that much capacity in my brain and that much time to get to a solution. A quick example of where this really helped, and it was actually a use case for Watson before it was put out to the public. I know that I'm not talking to a US audience, but in the United States, some years ago, I believe it was Toyota, some of the cars were accelerating at a high rate, sort of jumping off the ground and bursting into flames. And it was a big issue. In fact, we lost an IBM female executive in one of the first accidents that happened. It was unexplainable. This went on for over a year while Toyota, the National Transportation Board, and others were researching and digging, trying to figure out what happened. Well, if I'm Toyota and the research organizations, I'm going to start with electronics, mechanics, things like that as the reason why it might have accelerated. So over a year later, they found out it was floor mats. They put all the information that's out there in the universe into Watson. And in 2 minutes, Watson came up with 4 recommendations. The fourth recommendation was floor mats. Why was it the fourth recommendation? Because Watson didn't have to start with electronics and mechanical systems because of the limited potential and capacity of the brain. So hopefully that's a visual example of how it's great at research and discovery. And then I just mentioned recommending with confidence. It can help human beings make more confident, targeted recommendations. And of course, it's drawing from a much broader set of information and nuances of the current context. So I'm going to, we went through a dry run, and the video will play that I'm going to show you, but there'll be no sound, unfortunately. So I'm going to tell you what's going on in the video. You're going to look at a little short clip, Watson at work in a wine vineyard, and you will see the dad, who's the owner of the vineyard. You will see his daughter, who also works there, and you'll see Watson sitting in the middle of the vineyard. And so I'm going to read you some of what is going on. I don't know why my cursor isn't working. Excuse me a minute. Okay, it's inoperable. So they're in the vineyard. The daughter says, "Hey, Dad, come meet the new guy." The dad says, "What new guy?" She says, "I hired some help and he really knows his wine." Watson says, "Hello, my name is Watson." The dad says, "You know wine, huh?" And Watson says, "I know that you should check Vineyard Block 12. My analysis of satellite imagery shows it would benefit from decreased irrigation." So what did that just do? That's doing research and discovery. He's using the Watson Weather Company APIs that are linked to NOAA and the Weather Company, and he's taken all the other information and more information than a human being could, and it's talking about what you could do in a predictive fashion to help with your crops. So that's an example of research and discovery as well as recommendations. It'll also enrich interaction. So there's a lot of work around not only chatbots and customer service, but also using robots and other things. The next example is a robot named Connie that IBM has developed with the Hilton Hotels as a hospitality use case. And Connie is a hotel concierge. I know we've all been there. You've been in a hotel and you just need a quick set of directions, a quick restaurant suggestion, but the line at the concierge is long with people getting really complex things like play tickets and things like that, and the line at the front desk is equally long. And so you walk out the door and you kind of do it on your own. Well, that's what Connie, the concierge, is all about. And I don't know why yesterday, Andrea, these played, but they're not playing now, so I'll just keep going. Detecting liabilities and mitigating risk. This is a really big area. There's a clip that follows this. It's about security. Well, this one's playing. And so the manager, the woman, is saying, "Excuse me, are you aware of what's happening now? We're facing 20 million security events every day. DDoS campaigns, ransomware, malware attacks." The young man says, "Actually, we just handled all the priority attacks. We analyzed millions of articles and reports." Watson says, "Yes, we can identify threats 50% faster." And then the employee whispers to Watson, "Can we really do that?" And Watson says, "Yes, we just did that." So the point being that you can predict and mitigate risks and threats before they happen and take appropriate action. So that's another area. And this is kind of saying the same thing: anticipate and preempt disruptions. So this example in this movie is engineering. This is an engineer showing up in the lobby of an office building. He says, "Hey, security says pass, please." The engineer says, "I'm here to fix the elevator." The guard says, "Nothing's wrong with the elevator." The engineer says, "Right." The guard says, "But you want to fix it?" Engineer says, "Yup." So who sent you, says the guard. The engineer says the new guy, Watson, which you just saw. And Watson says, my analysis of sensor and maintenance data indicates elevator 3 will malfunction in 2 days. Engineer says, there you go. And the guard says, you still need a pass. In other words, instead of us going to work and having disruptions in the elevator when it fails, you can know it's going to fail 2 days in advance and do predictive maintenance, just as a small example. I think one of the last areas I want to talk about is scale expertise and learning. This is really pretty cool. AI is also for professionals. So for instance, there's a Watson oncology solution. What they've done is they've emulated the subject matter expertise of the best oncologists in the world. And once they do that, that means that medicine or oncology can be democratized, because no matter where you are in the world, if you can operate and have the same information and recommendations as the best oncologists in the world, then it's called elevating the expertise of every employee. Every employee can perform their duties as the best employee in your company or in your profession. And so that's a really important area. This is an example of Watson and healthcare. This one's a little bit long, but let me start by saying that this is about personalized medicine. And Watson is working together, providing more information to help oncologists personalize therapeutic options. In other words, individual therapeutic options for oncology cases. The way it works is every day, QS Diagnostics Lab receives biopsies from oncologists. Experts here use next generation sequencing combined with clinical interpretation to analyze the DA of each tumor. After genomic data is collected, Watson uses cognitive capabilities to help extract relevant insights from millions of medical journals and research papers in mere minutes, which helps provide therapeutic options identified in the literature for the DNA alterations detected in the patients. Again, personalized. So once the case is reviewed by a medical doctor at this QS lab, the report is sent back to the treating oncologist, who can create a personalized therapeutic plan tailored to the genetic makeup of their patient's cancer. Personalized medicine as an example. This one I'm going to let you look at because there are some words on it, but it's talking about AI and professions and where it can work. This is Connie, the hotel concierge robot. And Connie can also see you and give you directions. They can point in the right direction, etc., and can pick up empathy from whoever's speaking to them. So that gives you an example of the myriad of ways that it's really unlimitless as to how you can imagine AI and how to leverage it. I do want to mention two small things. One is, you saw Watson is a chef, by the way, the culinary cookbook, but it gives you an example of an everyday life thing. We come home from the office after a long day, we look in the refrigerator, and we can't find anything to fix or to eat. So Watson, they've taken Watson and created a chef who can take a picture, or you describe what's in your refrigerator that's left over. You might have a stalk of celery or a particular herb or whatever it is, a bunch of mishmash of ingredients. And Watson will actually create a meal for you, a recommended recipe for a meal for you that evening. I've had the food before at some conferences. It looks funny and the ingredients look funny, but it actually tastes really good because it's using the sense of smell, taste, science and chemistry to create these meals that we would never imagine because it's not normally the way you would put food together. So that's an interesting way of eliminating food waste in a small way at the home. The other is that there are also some free application. Watson has a math assistant now that's free to elementary school teachers. It is in English, and my understanding is, I think it's fourth grade, I'm not sure, but my understanding is what it does is it helps math teachers to personalize lessons for their kids the next day in school. So whereas a teacher may come home and go up on the internet and Google a bunch of stuff, takes a long time. Now they're leveraging Watson to just go out and see everything that's out there and make some recommendations on how she can tailor her math lesson the next day. And it is free if anyone's interested in that and letting their local schools know. I'm happy to speak about that afterwards. So let's transfer to Internet of Things. And at the risk of, you guys may know all about Internet of Things. So again, I apologize because I don't know what how much everyone knows that's on the phone. So IoT stands for the Internet of Things. And at the heart of it, the Internet of Things are everything that's digitized will soon be the single greatest source of data on the planet, right? Unfortunately, 90% of IoT data is unseeable for traditional computing systems. Again, the difference between big data and cognitive computing. Now we can see that unseeable data that's unstructured and leverage it, much like you saw in the vineyard with the weather company and other things. So this one is about airline maintenance. And it's a pretty cool video. And it starts out by in exactly 67 seconds, a passenger aircraft will take off with nonstop service to Los Angeles, California. And what it's showing you by the takeoff that's running down on the clock there is that in that time between the plane landing and taking off, Watson is helping maintenance crews and pilots optimize on-time performance. It's using advanced content analytics to examine planes' maintenance history, find connections between various factors such as the effects of the changing weather and tire replacements. It's equipping more than 400,000 IoT sensors into the latest aircraft so it can receive approximately 250 gigabytes of data per flight, deliver real-time updates to the teams on the ground crew with up-to-date information. So from the time the plane lands till it takes off, for instance, the ground crew might know that the plane arrived with an abnormal fuel tank contamination, and so they're ready to fix the plane before it takes off. And I won't take you through the rest of it, but it's just pretty incredible that now when the planes land in 67 seconds, they can not only fix what they see, they can fix what predictively Watson can give them through going through all of that data and IoT sensors. And real time based on the weather patterns, where they just came from, how the weather patterns may have changed some of the sensors and the devices on the airplane. I'm going to go through the next slides really quickly. Of course, the future of manufacturing is intelligent automation. Robots are being used everywhere, enabled by Internet of Things, cognitive AI, and there's some other things here, fog computing, swarming technology, etc. An increased use in a number of robots designed for industry applications. The second one in the middle with the red arms is Baxter. He's an industrial robot. He's used for simple industrial jobs such as loading, unloading, sorting, and handling of materials. Designed to perform the dull task on a production line and intended to be sold to small and medium-sized companies. The next robot is named Fetch because Fetch is a pair of robots designed to work in warehouses, and of course they autonomously pick and deliver goods. Bottler, this first one, you may have seen it, Starwood Hotels. It's actually able to perform tasks in the front of the house, the back of the house, as well as navigate around guests and use the elevators. But for the most part, so far, it's been delivering amenities to guest rooms in lieu of actual human beings. And of course, so when a guest calls down and asks for a toothbrush or extra towels, the hotel employees simply load up the robot. The robot knows how to go down the hall, avoid people, get in the elevator, push the button, and arrive to the guest door with the items in hand. And I don't think it asks for tips, so that's one of the side benefits. This next one is called Tug. It's in more than 100 hospitals across the U.S. And they haul carts through the halls delivering medical supplies, blood, meals, and more, using laser whiskers to avoid obstacles and humans, wirelessly opening doors, calling for elevators, and they've made over 19 million deliveries as of April in 2016. Tally is a grocery stocking robot. I don't think that requires any more explanation. And this last one, there's a hardware store in the US named Lowe's. This is called a Lobot. And when you walk through the front doors, it's sitting there. And by using a 3D scanner, it sees you as you come into the stores. And it asks if it can help you. And shoppers can search for items by asking the bot for what they want, typing items into the touch screen. And not only can it tell them where it is, but the bot can literally walk with you and guide you to the items using a smart sensory laser. So there are a lot more examples, but I just want to give you an idea of robots used to be doing mundane tasks, freeing up human beings to do the more interesting tasks or the tasks that require a little bit more brain power. I won't dwell on farming unless there's someone here, but obviously people are trying to leverage and go into smart farms. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization published an alarming report stating that by the year 2050, global agricultural production must rise by 70% to meet projected demand. And so farms are trying to get smart. Intelligent automated transportation systems. This chart kind of scares me a little bit, but it's coming. And of course, people talk about driverless cars. They get all the press, but think about all the other things that may become driverless, which is also a bit scary to me. And the future of air transportation will be autonomous and on demand. And you can see all the types of vehicles in the air, from planes to drones to whatever else is up there. So that's it for the AI piece of it. Blockchain, I'm going to do really, really quickly. What is a blockchain? Why is it relevant for our business? So blockchain literally is a shared, replicated permission back office ledger for business transactions. You can use it for other transactions, but let's talk about business transactions. And what's the key difference is that it's shared. Everybody doesn't have its own. There's only one. So the problem today is in a transaction, there are a lot of participants, and it's going to be hard to see, but there are a lot of little yellow lines going back and forth between the participants' records, the bank records, the auditor records, regulators, etc. Everybody keeps their own records with similar information and some unique information. So what's the deal with blockchain? It's a shared replicated permission ledger. There are no lines between it. There's one ledger, one digital ledger in the sky. It provides consensus, provenance, immutability, and finality. Consensus meaning that all parties agree to it, and you know that they agree to it because it's in one place and everybody can see it. If I ordered 10 things and 5 things got shipped, immediately everybody knows that there's a discrepancy of 5 so that you could take care of that before it causes more problems in the supply chain or in the transaction. Provenance meaning participants know where the asset came from, how its ownership has changed over time. Think about the food chains. Think about years ago, mad cow's disease, and how long it took to figure out where in the supply chain the issue was. Immutability. It means no participant can tamper with the transaction once it's agreed to. And if a transaction was an error, then a new transaction must be used to reverse the error with both visible. Again, everybody is looking at this one ledger at the same time, and if they have security, are updating the ledger real time. And finality means there's one place to determine the ownership of an asset or completion of a transaction, and that is the role of the shared ledger. Quick example, IBM Global Financing. On any given day, we would have hundreds of millions of dollars of outstanding disputed invoices, not really doing anybody any good. IBM undertook a project to implement a blockchain solution. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And those hundreds of millions of dollars outstanding every day came down to almost unmeasurable, I should say. So that's an example of how these technologies can make drastic improvements in whatever it is you're trying to improve in your business or with your customers' challenges. And that's the reason why when you look at these technologies, you want to find the biggest problem or biggest challenge or biggest opportunity for your customers that you have. And that's the challenge that you want to try to solve first. This is an example by industry of some of the things people are using this for: claims processing and insurance, supply chain and retail, etc. And I think that's it, so that we have about 20 minutes for questions. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry for the one-way dialogue, but hopefully you have lots of questions.
Thank you, Denise. That was amazing. It was very interesting. I would like to invite all the attendees to write down their questions if they have questions about this presentation. You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that there are specific examples for medium-sized or smaller-sized companies. How can a small-sized company access some of the capabilities of this new technology that IBM offers?
So I think that I actually read this in an external article, and I could try to find the article again and give that to you to send out to everyone, because they had examples of that in there. But these are sort of the areas that we were talking about. So if you think about intelligent CRMs, let's say you're using Salesforce software, which does CRM software. And if they're infusing artificial intelligence into their software on the cloud, then de facto, you're able to leverage it without creating a custom solution yourself. So that's what we're looking at. Intelligent customer service solutions. I mentioned chatbots. I think I skipped over the API chart. I showed you how Watson works, how it can see, hear, spell, etc. So the thing about artificial intelligence is that you don't have to tell it how to be artificially intelligent, because IBM has already figured out how to make it see, hear, empathize, smell, do research, etc. What you bring to the table is what problem you're trying to solve and what type of expertise and information that artificial intelligence would need. So also for intelligent customer solutions, we have an offering that sits next to a person behind the phone, a customer service agent. And so while you're asking your question, they might be typing in exactly the question in a sentence, in natural language into this service, and it'll come up with recommendations on what the answer might be and where they can go. And so that shortens the time for the agent to be able to answer the person on the phone. So there are things like that that are out there. And marketing, competitive intelligence kind of stands on its own, and other AI-ready solutions. So I will look for the article, Andrea, and see if I can send you the link to that.
Sure, thank you. I have one question here from Camille. He's asking, how accessible will Watson be in the next 5 years?
So actually, it's quite accessible now. The platform that you use, the Watson Cloud platform, BlueMix is the language that you use to access it. And I actually have a woman here in the U.S. who's a farmer. She's also a chemist and etc. And she has actually used Watson, small company, the Watson APIs. I'm going back there. These are little applications that are already built on this page and it's not, I don't have all of them here. The weather company's missing and some other ones. But she's actually had one of the person on her team go in here, play with these little applets to figure out the way they work during a trial period for free. And then has gone on to develop a farm to table application, which deals with food spoilage, from the time it's in the ground and unpickable to the time it reaches its ultimate destination to the table. She told me how many billions of dollars of food waste there are along the way. So it is quite accessible. And again, you'll have my email address. Just email me and I can put you in touch with the website. You can go up and play around with all of these services on Watson for free.
That sounds amazing. So there's different options for different types of companies and different sizes, right?
Well, it's not different companies, it's one size fits all. But again, so let me make this distinction too. We don't build your application, right? We provide these services, you could build your application. So that's a distinction, right? We're still in the toddler phase of AI. So as you can imagine, the larger companies do custom applications for AI. Once you get to a certain level, they will then become packaged applications, right? Once somebody solves food safety in the supply chain, it can be packaged and then given to smaller or sold to smaller and medium-sized businesses, if that makes sense. So a lot of it for the larger companies is first of a kind and custom supply chain things, what IBM did with our global financing team. But if you can solve the problem of $100 million in revenue, lost revenue every day, then it's worth it to put the people time and attention. But the example I gave you, this woman, she's a farmer. And so she developed a separate company as a agricultural technology company. She hired like two people, IBM business partners, by the way, and they developed this application. And now she's in talks with the federal government for sort of spreading this around the world. So again, that's an example of a small business that knew what the business challenge was, knew what problems she wanted to solve, and then hired a few people to go out and build it based on the Watson platform. But we don't have different platforms for different people. It's all one thing.
Yeah, okay.
We do have a global entrepreneur program, which I got her into, and that was designed for young and budding entrepreneurs, as her ag technology company was, to get direct connection with some of the IBM researchers and other resources within IBM for a specific period of time until she launched her product. So that helps too.
Thank you. We have another question. Are there any restrictions to access Watson in other countries outside of the United States, for example, Europe, now that data it's more sensitive?
So it's a good question, excellent question. So GDPR is a global phenomenon now, started from Europe, and know that corporations like IBM are totally compliant. Our business depends on it. We're in how many countries? 170 countries around the world. So we comply with whatever the data privacy restrictions are country to country. So no, there's no issue with that. We'd lose a lot of customers if we didn't comply, that's for sure. So no, we are truly a global company with with native citizens in every country in which we work and live.
Okay, so that means that you can as well access the web page and find more information and access Watson as
well,
your company was in the.
Well, that I can't speak to, but you should be able to. So, for instance, I mean, we're in China, we're in so many countries. I looked at the countries on this page, and we're in Canada, South Africa, Nigeria, Australia, Latin America. Yes, you should be able to access those.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I can send out, if you remind me, I'll send out a URL to get to some information.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question now that you've mentioned the Global Entrepreneurship Program. Can you share more details about that?
Well, I can. It's more you get nominated and you get into the program, but it's a program and it's being revisited as we speak. But it's a program for companies that are technology companies that are in place less than 5 years. So they're young and they're trying to tackle a problem, leveraging Watson, blockchain, or whatever it is. We don't have it yet for blockchain, but they're thinking about having a blockchain version of an entrepreneur program as well. And so it gives you access to some more resources, a little bit more assistance, and it gives you a grace period before which IBM would start charging you for your application. So I think you can build the application with a lot of credits from IBM. You will have your cost, which would be your employees that are doing this and whatever else you have to do, travel, etc. But from IBM, we give you so many marketing credits that you can use and expend on the Watson Cloud. with Bluemix, and then IBM gets paid when you go into production because it has to be on the IBM Watson cloud, which is secure and all these other things, and compliant. And once you start doing volumes, like any other cloud, that's when the revenue comes into IBM. So it's like anything else. It's a entrepreneurial program that helps you get on your feet. And once you get on your feet and get your application out there, then that's when the charges are coming in.
Okay, perfect. I don't know if we have any other questions. I think we don't have any other questions, Denise. I think this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this information. The presentation has been recorded and it will be available in our YouTube channel. So you will be receiving follow-up email with a link to access it. And as Denise has said, you can always follow up with any further questions on her email. Do you have any other additional comment you have?
And there's my email there.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. This was amazing. And yeah, if we get any other questions as well, we will forward those. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Denise, for this amazing presentation.
Thank you all for attending today's call. I really appreciate it. And again, email is the best way to reach me, and I will follow up with some information to Andrea that she can share. When you have the presentation, all of the videos are on YouTube, and you can go to www.youtube.com and just say Watson at Work, and a million different things will come up. So thank you very much.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's great information. Thank you all. Have a great day.